and today we're going to be talking about 6 signs that a woman is emotionally mature. So I just did a video about signs that a woman is emotionally immature, so now you guys know I have to do the opposite. I have to end on a positive note here and also let you guys in on the positive characteristics, the 6 signs to look for that a woman is emotionally mature. And this is a super big green flag to look for when you're dating. And obviously the same thing applies here that I mentioned at the beginning of the emotionally immature video, that these things apply to both men and women, but obviously my audience is mostly male, so that's who I am speaking to and giving you advice about women. So what is emotional maturity? Emotional maturity is the ability to feel, regulate, and process your emotions and effectively communicate emotions with an open mind to differing perspectives. If you look this up, there's going to be a bunch of different definitions, but the gist of it basically is what I just mentioned. The first sign that a woman is emotionally mature is that she takes responsibility and accountability for her actions and the consequences that might come along with that. Instead of blaming you or others, she can own up and take accountability for things and responsibility for her actions without becoming incredibly reactive or defensive. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to be wrong about things as long as we're able to own up to that and see our faults so that we can grow and evolve as humans. Self-awareness is another point that we can bring up here that I think is definitely required for someone taking responsibility and accountability. A lot of that does involve being self-aware and being able to see yourself from an outside perspective, so you can understand the areas that you need to work on and maybe heal or grow in a little bit. Sometimes we have to troubleshoot our actions to figure out what's working and what isn't. It's how we grow. My next one is that she communicates effectively. What does this mean? Both in expressing her wants and needs to you or to others, but also listening to others, aka could be you. This is crucial in a healthy relationship, and there are a ton of different examples I could give here. One of the main ones here that I've talked about a lot on my channel is being able to understand that your partner is not a mind reader, and you have to communicate your wants, needs, or feelings to them in order for them to understand what you're feeling. Instead of letting things build up or cause resentment or her being passive aggressive, she can openly express things to you in a healthy way, emphasis on healthy, so that you can resolve things together as a couple. Listening is another big one here, and something that I think a lot of people really struggle with. She might listen without interrupting or genuinely listen to what you have to say too. It's not emotionally mature when someone is their way or the highway and they completely disregard what everyone else thinks, feels, or wants for their own needs and wants. My next one is that she's vulnerable. Vulnerability can be scary. It opens you up to criticism, to failure, to rejection, heartbreak, etc. But it's how we form deep, meaningful connections with people. And as I mentioned in my emotional immaturity video, people who are emotionally immature often have trouble doing this. And the reason being because a lot of times emotionally immature people have a fear of failure or rejection or as being seen as anything less than perfect. In return, and in order to avoid this, they keep things very surface level and avoid going deeper with you or being vulnerable. My next one is that she's empathetic and understanding towards others, including you. Instead of constantly gossiping or being judgmental, as I mentioned in my immaturity video, she might try to put herself in someone else's shoes to better understand them instead. And on the flip side here, an emotionally immature person often only sees things from one perspective, their own. But someone who is emotionally mature is able to see things from other perspectives too. And I think a big thing here is understanding that a lot of things are not just black and white. There's a lot of gray area, there's a lot of nuance. We all have our own individual experiences, and I think it's important to be able to see where other people are coming from, or at least listen to them, make them feel, seen and heard and valued, instead of being so quick to judge or write people off. And I personally believe that empathy is a very important and powerful trait to find in a woman or a partner. Next is that she can regulate her emotions. Instead of lashing out or throwing a tantrum like a toddler, she's able to regulate her emotions and respond in a way that is healthy. And instead of being reactive or defensive, as I mentioned earlier in the video, there will be a more thoughtful, calm response. You might even notice that they take a deep breath before responding, or just take a moment to gather their thoughts. This is a sign that she's checking in with herself to make sure she responds in a way that is productive and healthy rather than, again, lashing out or being really reactive. The ability to handle conflict or a challenging conversation with respect, responsibility, and calmness is a sign of emotional maturity. And I'm absolutely not saying that emotionally mature people don't get upset or angry about things. They just might have a better understanding of when their emotions are overtaking being rational. Because sometimes this can blur your judgment and the way that you're able to respond. So taking a moment to be thoughtful, gather yourself, take a deep breath, give yourself a moment is a sign of emotional maturity. And my last one here is that she validates herself instead of seeking external validation from others. External validation is a trap that I think a lot of people in our society typically find themselves in. It's kind of this, how you feel about me is how I feel about me. This results in desperately trying to get approval from others, never feeling good enough, being terrified of rejection, being a people pleaser. Chasing acceptance or validation from others often leads to being a people pleaser, which is incredibly inauthentic and unfulfilling. And ultimately, to wrap everything up here, being able to self-validate kind of makes everything I talked about in this video a reality. When you're able to validate yourself, you're able to communicate effectively. You're able to regulate your emotions. Be vulnerable and take responsibility for your actions. It all goes hand in hand and helps you become an emotionally mature adult who's able to have a healthy, productive relationship.